listening to the Jboy Show, your number one source for Auburn and the SEC.
My goal was to run through his soul and grab his heart when I run through his soul. Kurt, Nate, Coach Dab, those are memories.
I think we've established ourselves as, I think, the premier conference in college football.
Now, the SEC is better at the top. It's better in the middle.
The Southeastern Conference remains the premier conference.
Takes the snap. Looking for the receiver. He's got Lutz and Kirkland. Touchdown, Auburn!
Think about it. It's always been the SEC and everybody else trying to catch it.
I think this is probably the best league from a competitive venue standpoint.
Capable teams. You just look at those programs, the way they recruit, how they invest.
Snap to Burrow. 3 steps. Fires. Back corner of the end zone. Over the shoulder catch. Did he hold on? He did. Justin Jefferson. Touchdown, Tigers.
And now, your host, Jboy.
It's Wednesday, so you know what time it is. It is the recruiting roundup, and we are joined by one of the top guys in the business. That's Phillip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes Scoop on Twitter. Dukes, what's up, man?
Hey, not much, man. What's going on, Jake?
Hey, just another beautiful day here in the South, man. Ready to talk some a little bit of Auburn football and some recruiting if you're down.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, I do want to start on the recruiting front because, there was some news as August kind of got started off, with a bang for Auburn. You get 2 commits, both defensive linemen, Marquise Robinson, 4-star out of Florida, and Tobeki Akoli. That's how I'm saying it, Dukes. I think you have a better pronunciation than me. The DN, strong side DN out of Lincoln in Kansas. What do you think about the 2 new guys? And I'm really excited about Marquise.
Yeah, I'm super excited about Marquise. A lot of people were saying that they thought he may have been solidly committed for a while. He kind of alluded to that, saying that he really wanted to push the button, and especially with that near midnight commitment out of the blue, nobody was really looking for it. I think he's a very explosive guy. And when I say explosive, I mean as far as being able to get out of his stance, whether you want to put him at the zero technique or not, you can really play him anywhere, interior defensive line, and he's going to make an impact. And what he's been showing in high school is that he's not just a kid that is bigger than everybody else. Mm-hmm. He actually has a bit of technique, and you can see him put together a few pass rush moves besides a bull rush. So I'm super excited about Marquise Robinson, a kid who's been through a bit of adversity, and I think that his commitment to Auburn University, a blue-collar guy, hard worker, he'll be a perfect fit. Now, in the instance of Toby Akoli is how I'll call it.
There we go. One of us is right. I know one of us is right.
Yeah, 50-50 chance. I think I'll take our chances. But yeah, Akoli is a guy that a Rodney Garner special, a strong side defensive end in the mold of a Marlon Davidson. Maybe not. And when I say Marlon Davidson, I mean like body size and not skill level. But what I'm saying is that he's that 6'3", 6'4" guy who can play as 270, 280 once he develops, hold down the edge as far as the run goes and provide some pass rushing support. May not be a buck guy, so to speak, so the guy that you'll look for the pass rush. But when I say pass rushing support, I mean to make sure they maintain the edge and they're able to impact the run game as well as just providing support in the pass. So I think he's one of those guys that once Coach G gets his hands on him, he'll be able to be developed. I'm hearing that they're super excited about him, that he was starting to heat up on the recruiting trail. So I'm definitely excited. And way to start August off. We've been getting ribbed a little bit by a few other schools about how much we've fallen off and we haven't had a commit since such and such, such and such. So to get those 2 back-to-back recruits, and I think a couple of weeks ago I did say that I thought that Gus would be pushing for more recruits, and I have heard that he's been more adamant with the staff about getting guys on board. So I think it's a really, really good thing for us to get some more stats on the board as far as commitment goes. And so now that guys will say, okay, well, the scholarships are shrinking. The spots are going away. So now I'm going to have to say, hey, am I committed to be an Auburn Tiger, or do I want to take my chances on somebody else taking that spot? So I think that the way Auburn handles business as far as saying, if we want you, we want you, it has kind of slowed us down a little bit. But getting those 2 recruits was huge, especially filling needs on the defensive line.
Yeah, and again, I think you bring up a great point talking about, Okoli. I believe he's almost like that stretch 3 tech. It's almost like a new position, a guy that isn't going to be an elite pass rusher, but is going to be able to set the edge and is athletic enough to be able to give you a pass rush and not lose contain, or athletic enough to be able to affect a quarterback. Now, he's not going to be a wizard in space, but you got to have a guy, and I thought Marlon was really good. Good job of that throughout his career. You got to know who you are as a player. And again, talking about Marquise, one thing when I watch his film, Dukes, and I thought your breakdown was right on point, is I noticed, obviously he'll learn to play with better leverage, because that's the easiest thing for linemen that are bigger and more athletic, is they can kind of get away with playing higher. But what I love to see from him is when he breaks through the line, he always has square shoulders. And he always seems to be in balance. And if you watch, there's a lot of plays where, he's on the backside of a run, but he uses his hands to engage the offensive lineman. He's able to see what's going on in the backfield, disengage the offensive lineman, and be able to run down. He's athletic enough to be able to run down a play on the outside. And like you said, it's a Rodney Gardner special. Reminds me a lot of Geno Atkins' film. Kid that almost went to Auburn, that went to Georgia and is with the Bengals for a long time. Kind of reminds me, kind of similar body type as well. So I think that's one that Auburn's. I think a kid that's going to come in and redshirt and end up being a guy that's a very solid contributor, and a guy that will be a staple in the interior of that defensive line.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that comparison to Geno. Even those body sizes, those body types, how they are right now, compare it really well. So, great call, Jay.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you too, man. I think he's a guy that, a composite 4-star too. So it's not a guy that's not, not known. And you look at the offer list too, Dukes, of these two guys, and you can see why Auburn and Gus Malzahn would be so excited.
No, definitely. Especially in the case of Okoli, he was an under the radar guy, but he started to pick up that steam amongst recruiting circles, and he's a guy that Auburn is going to have to continue to recruit. Yeah. Because if you noticed in our past, when we started to offer those under the radar guys, then the floodgates open in the SEC. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get more SEC offers, and Auburn's just going to have to continue doing a great job of recruiting after the commitment, as we've been doing, trying to keep our class in the fold right now.
That's a great point, and you want other schools to be recruiting your guys, because that means you're doing the right thing, and you found a diamond in the rough. But kind of moving on, a huge prospect. Me and you think this guy is about as good as it gets as far as high school offensive lineman coming out, and that's Amarius Mims. The latest news on him: he was supposed to commit in August, pushed that back to the original date of October 14th. And if you look at an official visit he's going to be taking at Georgia, there's a Auburn Tiger team that could make an impression on him in Athens. And you got to think, while it's probably still a long shot, it could do nothing but help teams not named Georgia that he pushed that commitment date back.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that him pushing that commitment date back allows other teams, namely Auburn and Tennessee, to continue to push for his commitment and to kind of show themselves in a more frequent fashion. And when I say that, is to continue to be consistent in their communication all the way up until the date. So, and I don't think that either school would have stopped recruiting him if he had committed, but I think that everybody in the industry feels that it's such a done deal that the commitment date is just a foregone conclusion already. But pushing that date out allows Auburn more opportunity to get that original commitment, which is very important in recruiting. And you notice that when you get a kid to commit, it's the decommitment process. It can be more of a headache than a blessing for a lot of the kids. So of course they want to make their one decision. So you do have kids that go back and forth. But I think with a kid of his stature and where he's ranked, and not just the ranking, but the film, and just seeing that he is one of those generational talents at this point in his career, that is really important that Auburn continues to recruit him. And even if you come second, and I know we don't want this, but what you want to do is, a lot of times, and we've seen this in the past, a lot of these recruits speak to each other on a regular basis. They talk to each other. And what you want to show well in a guy's recruitment, just like you said, Geno Atkins almost went to Auburn, right? That's a fact that you know. So there was somebody who was affected from his high school, from his family, from anywhere that was affected by saying, man, you know what, if it wasn't for this one factor, then I would have went to Auburn. having that in your corner or having that in your back pocket to say with a guy like Amarius Mims, another generational talent who's frequently speaking about Auburn when he speaks about the schools that he wants to go to. Now, I know we all want the cash. We all want the green. We all want the commitment. But I'm just glad that Auburn is now being in the conversation with all of these top guys, the same way that we talked about Bruce Pearl. So you have to play the law of averages. If you continue to be around the top with all of these 5-star guys, eventually you're going to be able to crack it open and those guys are going to start coming. The most important thing for us to do, like you said, is to go show well in Athens against Georgia. While Mims is there, show well, let him see what he could be a part of. And I think that even though it is a long shot, I do think that the pushing back of his commitment does bode well for other teams, because right now everybody is saying it's just a matter of time before he goes to Georgia. But I've seen worse before. You know, I've seen where like a Broderick Jones situation. Now, whether he was actually ever going to come to Auburn, we'll never know. But that visibility that we got, even though we didn't get the kid, that visibility still helped with other recruits. So definitely, anytime you hear Auburn, especially associated with a big-time recruit, is marketing, is branding. Yeah. And I think as we start to build a brand, it's going to be very important for us to continue to recruit Amarius Mims. And hell, you never know. It's 2020. Anything can happen.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, what's to say? Because, you know, number one, obviously Amarius wants to come in and play. And you know, me and you talked about this on the pre-show, Dukes, that, you know, we feel like he could come in and play anywhere. He's that talented. But, you know, kids look at depth charts. And what's to say that, you know, Auburn doesn't shoot out of the gate 4-0 and have a ton of momentum and some things fall where they may. And it's a top, you know, 5 to 7 matchup. And Auburn goes and gets a huge win on the road. And you look who has the juice. You look who has the depth chart. And you give yourself a chance. And I've said this, and I'll keep saying it. I think Auburn's done their best recruiting job with Mims. And people think I'm crazy. They're like, well, then we're not going to get him. How can you say that? Well, if you've ever recruited and you've started in a position, especially with an elite player, where you're on the outside looking in and you've lasted this long and now gotten it to a point where what everybody thought was a foregone conclusion Georgia commitment in August is now pushed back to October, you have to take your hat off. And again, reality is reality. And you put yourself in a position, and I think Auburn's done that here. But, you know, kind of staying with the offensive line, Dukes, you know, there's some guys we've talked about. You know, we've talked about Rod Orr ad nauseum. He put out a top 5, didn't have Auburn in it, but, you know, I don't believe he has a committable offer from Auburn. And then you have a story on Rayvon Crum, Kool-Aid's teammate out of Pinson. I think we all kind of understand the situation there. But, you know, are there some other offensive line names that you're hearing? Obviously, there's Savion Byrd, but it's been kind of quiet on that front. What are you kind of hearing as far as the offensive line recruiting goes?
Well, the two names that I hear are Diego Pounds and Mason Bundy. Diego Pounds, kid out of North Carolina who's Tennessee and Clemson is recruiting heavily. Dietrich Pennington was a guy that just committed to Clemson we were recruiting heavily. But I think between Diego Pounds and Mason Bundy, I think we have a really good shot at both of them. Mason Bundy is a down the line type guy, but his film and his size, I think they definitely if we do play a high school football season in Georgia, he's going to be a guy that the more that people see of him, the more offers he's going to get. He just committed to Liberty. I think Hugh Freeze is still up there, if I'm not mistaken. They play they've got Malik Willis at quarterback, so they play quality football there. It's not somebody who's going to excite the guys on the message boards at all. But when you go back and you look at him, you see his size and you see what he can do, I think that's somebody that Big Nell definitely would like to evaluate more. Pounds, I think Pounds is just as good as you got in the country outside of Mims and Brockermeyer. So I think those two names are names that I continue to hear. I think Savion Byrd is pretty solid at SMU, and I'm not thinking that he wants to lead the state in particular. So that's just what I'm hearing right now. Hopefully things will change, and like you said, there's always going to be some names that pop up that nobody has any intel on. If we knew everybody on the board, and even I don't care who you go to, nobody had Toby Okoli coming to Auburn. Nobody. Yeah,
that's the truth.
So doing a really good job of keeping things close to the vest on certain prospects. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did see another offensive lineman special, especially with the loss of Justin Osborne.
Yeah, and that's something that we're that's a great segue into getting there. And before we get there, I just want to remind everybody how good Caleb Johnson is. He's a 3-star, and we talk about all these offensive linemen that have gone to Alabama and all this stuff. Look at Caleb Johnson's offer list and go look at his film. Outside of Amarius, I'd put Caleb up there with anybody in the country, and his offers tell that story.
Man, and look at his body. He is ready. Like, he could play. I literally and wholeheartedly believe that he can help us next year.
I agree.
And I think that the most important part of recruiting these high stars, and we want these guys in the NFL projections, is who can help you next year. Who can help you in the Iron Bowl next year? And I think that's how I grade prospects. Not about your ceiling, because everybody's going to have a ceiling. They're still 17 and 18. They're going to develop. We know that. Mm-hmm. But I think the premium guys are the guys that can come in and help you next year, who is coachable enough and who already has the body type that can help you win the Iron Bowl. And I think that's really important. I think we lose sight of that when it comes to recruiting. Everybody's a size, speed guy. I get it. And those guys are going to be ranked the highest based on NFL projections, with how much of importance is being placed on measurables and combine stats and who can perform and who can run well and these type of deals. But what happens when you actually line it up?
Yeah.
What happens when Caleb Johnson has to block a Marquise Robinson? Like, those are the type deals that I'm going to look at and where I'm saying where a guy can be next year. Caleb Johnson has phenomenal film. He has great feet. And I think that we should be just as I know everybody wants the candy and the new stuff and the new kid, but we should be very, very excited about some of the guys that we have in our class already, and especially after us taking 2 guys that are not highly ranked, and our ranking, our quality of our ranking is still in the low 90s.
Yeah.
So I think that one of our best classes ever was a 91.44 overall. And I think I honestly think, and I said this maybe 2 months ago, that we're going to smash that.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get those higher ranked guys and those size speed guys. We're going to get some of them. We're still Auburn. And I think that having a guy like Caleb Johnson in the fold already who can really play, and him playing another season of high school football is only going to make him shoot up the charts. And I think that we've already had a scare with him. A couple of weeks ago, it came out that Florida was after him very heavily, and Florida, I think he had a teammate commit to Florida, I believe.
Jake Slaughter.
Right. So a lot of people thought that the commitment or the flip was coming with Caleb Johnson, and that was a little bit of some buzz going around. But I think that we're doing a great job still recruiting him, and I can't wait to see him on the plains.
Definitely, and he's a guy, like you said, that I think can come in and help the next year. But, you brought up, and we've talked about, we always talk about the high-ranked guys and the Kool-Aids and the Scoobies and that stuff. And, again, a lot of those are kind of where they're at. Obviously, we've thrown our predictions out there on this show, and not for Kool-Aid yet, not for Nyland yet. But, Smael Mondon's a guy we've talked about a bunch on here. It just kind of seems like it's still status quo from the last time we talked with Smael.
Yeah, so I actually got to see him at a practice last week, and I get it. And, he's 6'3", 215, 220-ish, fast as hell, and he has that wiry build where he doesn't look as heavy as he really is, but and you know this as being an athlete, just because the guy doesn't look heavy doesn't mean that he doesn't pack a punch.
Yeah, and, ask those guys that fight UFC. Right,
exactly. So, Smael, when I did see him, he did have on UGA apparel. I asked him about it. He said, yeah, I really like Georgia. Now, I did see on one of the Georgia message boards, they thought that if it were to happen today, that he would commit to Auburn. But they said they had very, very low confidence in that. But they did say that Auburn is a factor. So, and I think he has one of the more long and winding recruitments. I think he was very, very close to committing to Tennessee earlier in the summer. The whole buzz was Tennessee, and then that died down. And then the buzz was Auburn, and then that died down a little bit. Now Georgia's making a push. So I think that it's one of those commitments that's going to be hard fought. It's going to go down to the wire. Definitely a very, very polite kid. He was a joy to meet, and I look forward to big things from him. And I wouldn't make a prediction right now, but I definitely think it's a 50-50 Georgia-Auburn battle. Well, he did mention Florida. Let me say that. He said Florida wowed him with the presentation they gave him on name, image, and likeness. I don't know exactly what went into that, but I do know that he did mention Florida, and he made no mention of Tennessee. So I think right now his top three schools would be Georgia, Auburn, and Florida.
Yeah, and he's a guy, like you said, that's got all the tools and the natural ability to be a playmaker. And I want to kind of stick on this point for a second because, most of the time, and there's a saying in recruiting, and it's the truth, man, it's the big dogs walk late. And, that's why you have most of your 5-stars committing on signing day and all that. Well, with this new early signing period in December, it obviously kind of moves that up. But now that kids are starting to get the inkling that they're going to be able to visit, and I'll use Jeremiah Williams as an example, some of these kids aren't going to commit. Some will, as we talked earlier, but if they have a feeling they're going to be able to take their visits, it may slow down the recruitment some. And again, I'm never going to get mad at a kid for taking a visit because you have to if you're seriously considering a place.
I mean, how can you? So imagine, just think about when you were being recruited for baseball. I mean, you wanted to see where you were going to spend the next 4 years of your life, right or wrong.
I had to. Me, my parent, everybody in my family, it was a must.
Right. So I definitely put that into consideration or take that into consideration when I think about selfishly, hey, I just want all these guys to commit so we can be happy. Like, oh, yeah, come on and commit. Come on. But when you put yourself
in July, the class is done, guys. Good job.
Right. But, hey, you know what? And there are so many people that, look at Tennessee. Tennessee got all those commitments early. And now they have nothing to look forward to almost. It's almost like,
you got to hold on.
We got our class. Right, now it's holding on. Oh, this guy's going to flip. We hear so much about Dylan Brooks. We hear so much about even the linebacker out of Miami who's been flirting heavily with Nebraska. So I think that it's a good and a bad thing. A bad thing is a selfish nature for myself that I would like to go ahead and get everybody committed in the class now, sign them, get the national letter of intent earlier than anybody else. But that's a dream world. It's recruiting. And I think as football fans, I honestly feel like it's one of the best things that we have going as college football fans right now with being of the COVID situation, that we don't have anything else to look forward to. So that's why I think recruiting is being so hotly contested right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's the prettiest girl at the dance for sure. But I want to kind of move on because you're a guy that it's not just recruiting. Obviously, connected to the program and kind of have an insight on what's going on, and we all have our sources and stuff like that. But it's something to where you talked about Justin Osborne leaving. That's the offensive lineman that announced he was going in the transfer portal. Was I believe a 4-star on one site and a 3-star on another coming out of high school. And again, some people are like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. But anytime you lose depth on the offensive line, it hurts. But again, on the other hand, sometimes it's just good to part ways and some situations don't work out.
Yeah. So Osborne had some minor off the field issues like a lot of kids do when they come in. One thing about it, he was a long way from home. Secondly, I think that he thought he was fighting an uphill battle to play with the junior college transfers that came in. Mm-hmm. But I've heard from multiple sources that he could play. He really could play. It is not something that Auburn is just, good riddance. Not at all. And I don't think we're ever like good riddance, but there have been transfers that haven't helped that we say, okay, well, just do the best thing for you because it was a mutual type deal. No, we really wanted Osborne to stay. There was some talks about trying to get him to stay, trying to convince him. He had his mind made up. I was privy to that info early, a little early, but until it hits the portal, I'm not going to be the one to, kind of say, I'm not going to take that on. But definitely somebody that Auburn was very disappointed to lose. It does open up another spot on the offensive line, so you could see us take, up to 7 offensive linemen this year.
Yeah.
So, but definitely disappointed. I wish the young man the best. I hope he finds a soft landing spot somewhere he can show his talent because he's definitely talented. And I'm really disappointed we didn't get to see him play because I thought he was somebody that was going to surprise this year.
Yeah, and again, you know as well as I do, it's depth up front, especially depth that understands the offense and can physically do it. You know, it's very hard to replace, especially quickly and when the clock's ticking down to the season. And kind of speaking of the clock ticking down to the season, obviously they pushed it back, the date back to August 17th, I believe, when you can start practice, which, you know, again, it gives you more time to install. You know, obviously you can't practice and go out there and do that. But, you know, for the quarterbacks that are learning a new system, for the young guys that are learning a new system, it does give you a little bit of buffer period. And again, everybody has to go through it, so you really can't say it's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, you got to line it up, like as they say, right? Everybody has the same amount of time to practice. Depending on when you want to start your season, I think the Big Ten is going to keep their season on schedule, start next month, September 3rd or September 5th, whatever day it is. But yeah, they're going to go ahead and start and vote bye weeks. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the SEC, are we going 10 weeks straight?
Nah, to be honest with you, it's something that I feel like changes every 3 hours. But right. I believe it's 10 weeks with 2 bye weeks built in. But now that they're adding these 2 games, you know, to the schedule to make it a full regular season, I'm wondering, do you have to add another bye week now? Right.
So it's it's up and down, definitely a fluid situation. But I think that the biggest takeaway from the COVID deal with me is that our road games, this is our year for our harder road games, Georgia and Alabama. We get Bo Nix in a neutral, basically it's neutral site. No fans in the stand. So if you noticed last year, our Bo's worst game was in Florida. Absolute worst game. And the fan base was rabid. Literally, I was almost scared for him in that environment to be an 18-year-old guy going down to somewhere where they were rocking. The stadium was rocking.
Yeah.
Everybody looked drunk. It was
they weren't welcoming him with cookies and a warm glass of milk.
Nah, man. I know he was called everything but a child of God. So I think being able to neutralize that is something that plays in Auburn's favor. A lot of people aren't talking about it, but I'm saying, man, to be able to go to Athens with a 20% capacity at the most. Yeah,
Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, come on, man. Like we really caught a break here. So I hope we're able to take advantage because, but I will say this. That experience that Bo got last year in those big games on the road, I think even though he didn't perform as well, I think that he got that experience, and I think that he would have been better prepared this year.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was going to say, but with that being said, hell, if you don't have to, then why do it?
Ain't nobody crying. There isn't anybody crying over not having some hatred from fans during the game. But it's a great point you bring up, because going on the road, and I want people to understand this, going on the road isn't just about the opposing fans and what happens in the stadium and all that stuff. You're traveling, you're staying at new places, you're eating at new places, and it's really a new experience. And if it's crazy because it happens to coaches. If you're going on a long trip, or you're flying across the country, or even flying down to Gainesville, on Friday or late Thursday, you can almost kind of get caught up in the experience of being away from home and seeing new stuff for the first time, and it can kind of throw you for a loop a little bit. And some coaches preach, hey, relax, and I don't want you to think about the game and all that stuff. Meanwhile, everybody's thinking about the game. That never works when coaches say that, but and I used to say it. But I think having that experience of going on the road and understanding, how to prepare when you're sleeping in a new place, and walkthroughs at a new place, and practices at a new place, I think it's just all encompassing for Bo, and it's just an experience that, just makes everything a little more comfortable. And if you can make it a little bit more comfortable for the quarterback, that could be that, maybe one throw or that one decision to throw the ball away that wins you the game.
Yeah, definitely. And another, I guess, kind of underrated fact, or something that a lot of people don't talk about, would be the communication with the offensive line. And so being able to take that rabid fan base away where people can make their calls, where it's almost like being in a practice setting at neutral site, so that the offense won't be getting confused, or the offensive line will know how to pick up a stunt because they're able to communicate with each other, which is going to be especially important for Auburn coming out with 4 new starters this year. So I think that communication and the ability for them to gel in a more conducive setting, so to speak, I think it's going to be really big for us basically playing neutral site games this year.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine, watching the Braves game the other day. There's no fans, so when they hit the ball, I can hear the third base coach. I can hear the first base coach. I can hear the people in the dugout talking. I can hear every outfielder or infielder call the ball. And it's kind of weird because typically you don't hear that because there's fan noise. So, you watch the UFC and there's no fans there and you can hear the guys breaking each other's faces. It's different when you can hear it. And you want to talk about crazy? Wait till you hear some of those collisions without fans in the stands. It's going to sound like somebody dropped shot a Tomahawk missile into the stadium.
Right. No, definitely. I'm really excited. Beforehand, when all of this first started going down, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, how can we have football with no fans?" But I guarantee you, after these sportsless months that we've had to endure, everybody's going to be excited. They're going to find new things that they like about the game and the way that we have to play the game in a new world that we're living in right now. So I'm definitely excited. I got my DraftKings budget ready for NFL. And definitely. I think that even though it's different, is what we have, and I think we got to make the best of it.
Definitely, and I think that's a great point, and I'm right there with you in the DraftKings, man. One of these days I'm gonna hit one of them big, but man, I kind of want to talk about some personnel at Auburn because I thought our wide receiver and DB breakdown was great last time. I thought that people really enjoyed that, and I want to talk a little bit about the linebackers and the defensive line, and obviously speaking about the defensive line, you lose Derek Brown, you lose Marlon Davidson. But, Auburn has some talent. You have Truesdale. On the outside, you have Hall. You still have Big Cat coming back. You have Dre Butler, the junior college transfer that was ranked pretty high. And there's a lot of talent there for Coach Gardner and Auburn to work with.
Yeah, I think that this will be one of the more cohesive units that we've seen from the defensive line. You're not going to have that high-level star potential that we've had in previous years, but as a line, as a whole, these guys are going to be one of the best defensive lines that we've seen in Auburn, in my opinion. So when you look at the talent level base, let's start off with a Daquan Newkirk, or Red as they call him, Big Red. One of the most hyper-athletic guys that we have on the team, but you may not get to see it based on the fact of how big he is. But he's a superb athlete. He's overcome multiple injuries, and I think that's been the only thing that's strong as a Knox, one of the strongest guys of the team, particularly nimble. And I think, and as you know, he was a running back in his previous time before he got to Auburn. And I didn't even know, you put me on game, that he actually got some carries while he was in junior college, which says a lot about his athleticism, being that size and being able to be somebody who can impact the game from both sides of the ball. I think that guys who do have that previous experience running the ball or being on the offensive side, it helps them in pursuit. So if you can get away from a guy, that you can get to a guy, just to break it down to its simplest terms. So I think all his athleticism is something that has been ranted and raved about so far in drills and walkthroughs. Also, another guy on the defensive line who's been really good and really been impressive and is picking up the defense really well has been Zykevious Walker, the true freshman coming out of South Georgia.
That was a huge signing. That was a huge signee. I don't think people realize how big of a signing that was.
And I know we've already said it, but he's one of those guys that puts you in the mind of Marlon Davidson, the way he handles his business. Blue-collar guy, comes to work, very serious about his craft, not doing a whole lot of joking or playing at practice. He's responded well to Coach G, biting on him a little bit and just kind of de-recruiting him. And we hear a lot about that. It said that, Garner's a really tough coach, but if you can get through that tough love, then you'll get the result. And a lot of that, and a lot of times that result is playing on Sundays in some capacity. So I think he's another one of those guys that we'll see. I definitely feel like he could play this year and not redshirt. And to go back and talk about the defensive line, just from watching social media, I've seen multiple pictures of these guys hanging out together. And it's something that I haven't seen in as many years as saying not just 2 or 3 guys hanging out, or not just 1 or 2 guys hanging out, but 6, 7, 8 guys in multiple pictures in street clothes that genuinely enjoy being around each other. And you can tell. So I think that this is going to be one of our more cohesive units. And I keep saying this, but this team really gives me 04 vibes just because of the level of talent that's coming back. But so in 04, they were called the no-name defense. The previous year, you had a Carlos Dansby. The previous year, you had a Spencer Johnson. The previous year, you had a Dontarius Thomas. You had all of these guys that were on the front 7 that were NFL caliber prospects and who all played a long time in the NFL. The following year, you have the Kevin Sears of the world. You have the Brett Edens of the world. You have the Travis Williams, the Antarius Williams of the world. So those guys may not have been as supremely talented as the other guys, the previous guys before them, i.e. a Marlon Davidson and a Derek Brown. But I think their cohesiveness, how they play together and how they blend, and they're just will to win, and seeing how the best have done it, understanding what it takes to be a top pick. So just because you don't have those same physical attributes doesn't mean that you can't still put parts of their regimen in your repertoire. So you know how a first-round pick looks. You know how a top-flight guy looks. And these guys have taken it to heart, and I'm really, really excited about our D-line this year.
Yeah, and man, I think that's a great breakdown because, again, and it's a great point because I used to always know. I would always know we were going to be good when I could walk in the cafeteria and I would see offensive linemen sitting with DBs. I would see punters sitting with running backs. I would see, guys genuinely enjoying to be around each other, and they don't just all play the same position. But on the other hand, when you see all the defensive linemen together, man, that makes you feel good because, like you said, football is the greatest team sport on the earth. Because, 11 guys have to do their job, especially on defense, because one guy doesn't do their job, it's a touchdown. That's just the way you have to look at it. So when you have 4 guys that are out there and 4 to 8 guys that are out there hanging out, it almost, I swear, it almost helps build the depth because guys, it's not all of a sudden, man, I got to start or I'm leaving Auburn. It's, man, I want to start, obviously, but Dre, man, that's my boy, and he's a dog, and we're both going to play, and I want to see him eat, and he wants to see me eat, and that's how it all comes together, and you just, excuse my language, you just go start whipping people's ass.
Definitely, and what it does, in my previous experience, it adds a level of accountability at a peer level. So when you have a coach telling you what to do is one thing, but when you have a peer, you have somebody that you respect on and off the field telling you, hey, man, that's not the right deal, or hey, man, did you miss class yesterday, or why weren't you in class with us, or hey, man, why were you late to workout? Dang, we had to be here. That type of peer level accountability is what takes a team to the next level. And I think that this defensive line has a chance to be really special. And not even to mention TD Moultrie, who they say looks like a man on a mission. He took his number from 55 to 99. I think that is going to be significant. And
Shout out Tez Doolittle.
Man, Big Ted, my boy, for real.
Over like a high school, baby.
Yes, sir. And I think that it'll have a lot to do with how he shows himself this year. One of the most highly touted recruits that we had on the roster, period. He ended up being a composite 5-star. So I think it's one of those years where you'll get some of those contributions from guys who we've been waiting on for a while, and some of the stalwarts like Truesdale.
Yep.
Like a lot of very, very underrated guy, but he's a ball player, and he showed himself well last year. Alongside of a Derek Brown and a Marlon Davidson, 2 of the greatest players who've ever come through the program. But to talk about the linebackers, one guy that I'm especially excited about is Wesley Steiner.
Yeah, God almighty. I saw him freaking power clean a village of children the other day.
Exactly. There, and I always talk about, I keep hearing how smart he is. I keep hearing how much of a physical specimen he is. But so I got a clip that was going around from some of the players that I got a hold to, and they were just like in awe of him running gassers by himself. Hot day, everybody was off. Somebody caught wind of him just running by himself. No teammates, no coaches, no nobody. This is player video. And those are the type of things that get me excited about somebody who wants to be better more so than they want to do anything else. I think he's so focused on what he wants to do that it's going to show well, and I think that he does have potential to play this year just because of his physical attributes, with him being strong as he is, as fast as he is, as he was one of the highest rated physical athletes as far as SPART training or the SPART test goes. But everybody has said how much of a joy he is to be around as far as his intellect. Definitely one of the guys who may walk to the beat of a different drummer, but you're going to respect his beat based on the fact of what he does on the field and how he shows himself and how respectful he is. So I think that he has a story that I read from Gianna Hunn of the Montgomery Advertiser, I think. And I forgot what she reports for. Gianna Hunn is the lady's name. And however you say it. But now she wrote a really good story about his upbringing. So he's one of those guys that you root for, but it's so much easier to root for him, not just on a personal level, but because he's a baller. Looking at his high school tape, I see why we were so excited to get him, even after losing out on Trent Simpson. So I think that he's a guy to really be excited about. Desmond Tisdale is a legit. So, and I know I said this early on. I was like, oh, dang, when he reported he was 230, and a lot of people were like, I thought he was like 210. So you saw the roster come out. You saw the roster come out, and he was listed at 230. So he's a really, really thick guy. I think that he'll play more so around 225 to 220 range. If he takes his conditioning serious, he can be a force. I do see him as potentially a red shirt guy. Cam Riley is somebody who's drawn comparisons to Carlos Dansby with his length, how long he is, how fluid he is. He's one of those type guys that as long as he knows where to go, he'll make an impact when he gets there. Just a baller. Always around the ball so far and making good decisions as far as when he sees certain personnel packages. I've heard that he knows where to go already, which is going to bode well from him if he's able to help us this year. And he's a guy that I definitely would not. I wouldn't mind red shirting all three of these guys.
Dude, it's the perfect scenario. It's the perfect scenario as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, you got so right now. So everybody knows we basically have, if not the best in the country, one of the best linebacker rooms. Period.
Yeah, hands down.
So with the KJ Britt, Jacoby McClain, Owen Papo, who did you see him? His 4 years jumped the other day. Good gracious.
Yeah, I think it was 43, wasn't it? Something crazy like. I mean, that's people don't I mean, you don't realize, because I'm gonna tell you right now, man. And I just remember last year, Owen Papo off the edge is a problem. Like when they walk him down, I know he's not huge. I know he's not, a super big guy, but man, when they bring him down off the edge, his first 2 steps are about as good as it gets.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, he's a real live freak. He'll run the 4.4, 4.5 range. He's gonna bench press crazy. He's a guy that the NFL is already salivating about because he doesn't have to leave the field in any instance. Strong run support, and he can play in space. I mean, if he had to, he could probably play nickel or safety in a pinch. So he's definitely a guy that I'm excited about. So with the depth of our first 4, KJ, I think we'll start with KJ Owen and then go back into the Chandler as a Kobe type deal, and then you'll start to see a mix and match based on personnel packages. Then really, they said OC Brothers, I've heard, has made huge strides in getting his body the way it needs to be. I got a comparison. When Desmond Tisdale got there, he looked like OC Brothers when he got there. But with the development of the strength, with strength and conditioning, OC Brothers has transformed his body, and he looks better to be one of those depth pieces and potentially be in the role to start or be in that top 4 next year. I heard Cam Brown has lost a lot of weight. He's a guy who's been taking his craft seriously. So and Josh Marsh has still just been one of those guys who does everything right. He just ran into some guys that are supremely talented. It's not like he's not a good player, and he loves Auburn so much he's not looking for the first door out of town so he can go play. He knows what he's up against. He knows that I've got a Buckets candidate playing in front of me. I have one of the most athletic guys in the world on the side of him. But there aren't better athletes than Owen Papo. No matter if he wanted to run a triathlon, he could. So I think our front 7 A lot of people were worried about the defensive line. I'm not. I feel like this could be one of our best defenses as a whole that we've seen in Auburn. I think that. So, for example, you look at how much Nick Fairley impacted the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was a dominant force, but the defense wasn't dominant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
that makes 100% sense.
Without a Cam Newton, a Heisman-winning quarterback, a generational talent, a statue-worthy talent, Nick Fairley still would have been on a mid-tier defense. So I think that this year, with the Derrick Brown and the Marlon Davidson going, people know that their responsibility is going to be to do more. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, okay, well, we'll just leave it out here and Derrick can make the play. There's not going to be a number 5 running in from the sideline, stopping the swing pass that could have went for 20 yards. Like, it's just not going to happen this year. But I think that we'll be in more situations that we won't need that type of superstar presence because the defense as a whole will be so cohesive and good that superstars are going to start to emerge. Like, I'm so excited about the safeties, Sherwood and Smoke. But I think both of them are Sunday players, especially Sherwood with his versatility and the multiplicity that you can, and the things that you can do with him. He can hit like a linebacker. He can run like a gazelle, strong as hell, smart, call the coverages if he needs to. He could actually slide up in a pinch and play a little middle if he had to. Yep. So I'm just definitely excited about this defense. The whole way around. So, even Roger McCreary, I'm really, really excited to see what he does as the man. This is his year. And if he has a good year, you can see that we're going to continue that pipeline of NFL cornerbacks coming through Auburn. So, just definitely excited about the defense. And I've been hearing nothing but good things so far about the guys that'll play.
Yeah, and it's something where I think the defense may be a little slept on, and that's fine. That's fine. But, when you go out there and the bullets start flying, you really find out, and all those stars and all that stuff goes out the window, and you find out who wants it more. And I know those guys, especially after talking to Coach Pogue, I know they're really confident. They share that confidence. And you being as close to you are to the program, you can just kind of feel the momentum a little bit that side of the ball is very confident. Obviously, they're very confident. Bo Nix, Coach Pogue was unbelievably complimentary of him and the way he's led and stuff like that. But Dukes, man, great stuff as usual. One of the top guys in recruiting and analysis that you're going to find around Auburn. Dukes, tell everybody where they can find you, man. I appreciate you coming on again.
Man, thanks a lot for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Dukes the Scoop, DUKESTHESCOOP. And just follow me, hit me up. Let's talk football. I'm always available. And I love Auburn football, and so if that's what you want to do, you got somebody to talk to. Seriously.
Yeah, definitely, and I'll be seeing you around soon, Dukes. We'll keep doing this, and it'll be fun, bro.
Yes, sir. I can't wait.
Definitely, man. Well, stay safe out there. We'll talk soon, and man, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome stuff, and we appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Thanks a lot, Jake.
All right, see you later, man. And that was Phillip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes the Scoop, one of the top guys for recruiting analysis for Auburn and the SEC, because the great part about it is it's just like knowing one position. If you know defense, you got to know offense. If you know what's going on at Auburn, you probably know what's going on at Alabama. So it's a nice deal, great deal to be able to have him. He's does an unbelievable job, and he's a great friend of the show. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure y'all hit his Instagram. It's still kind of new, and it's blowing up, so make sure you jump on it. As usual, thanks to IBN, the best PR team in the game. Faison in the studio doing his thing. Remember, text JBOY to 90407. That's JBOY 90407, and you'll get the earliest predictions. Got some more big announcements coming up. We got Phil Steele tomorrow. That's right, Phil Steele breaking down the whole SEC. And then Friday, we have LSU's TigerDetails.com. That's their rivals page. Owner, publisher Jimmy D. Smith coming on. We're going to talk some Kool-Aid. We're going to talk some LSU, Auburn recruiting, and it's going to be a good time. So thank you guys as usual. It's another recruiting episode of the Jboy Show, and Jboy is gone.